Hey there, silly geese! Quackers, welcome back. This is part 8 of the Catching Fire's Great Film Adaptation series, where we look at how the choices made for the adaptations affect the story that's being told and how we interpret it. We're not trying to weigh which one is better or worse. They're different texts with sort of different messaging, and that's mostly what we're looking at this point. This time we're going to be looking at the reaping straight on through to the interviews, the build up to the third quarter quell. Let's meet our tributes. Spoiler alert, this video may contain discussions of the entire franchise. Yes, that includes Sunrise on the Reaping.
Welcome as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Hunger Games.
I love how Elizabeth Banks plays this part. It's such a great reflection of the sentiment towards the quarter quell. Also the butterfly outfit, so good. Transformation of Effie's character, at least in the films, is happening sort of in this reaping and in the beginning of this quarter quell.
Hamish Abernathy.
I volunteer as tribute.
This is a great interaction.
I can't stop.
Not what we see happen, obviously, but still a perfectly fine addition.
The tributes from District 12, Katniss Everdeen and Peter Millar.
I get to say goodbye.
Good plan, straight to the train.
No, I have to say goodbye.
As I mentioned already, there are some really great changes that we see to that scene. One of the changes that I am most interested in for the reaping is that salute where the community salutes her again like they did when she volunteered for Prim during the first games. I think that this moment where they honor Katniss going back into the games with the salute is more similar to what we would expect to see in our world, in our version of politics, where they would openly show support for someone who had defied the Capitol. That is not really a reflection of what we see in the books. At this point, most of District 12 had spent a lot of time avoiding Haymitch, Peeta, and Katniss, so they wouldn't show this level of support at all. There would be no visible support. It got so bad that Gale's mom couldn't find work because no one wanted to be associated that closely with Katniss. And so Haymitch ended up hiring her. I just want to emphasize that this level of solidarity is just not reflective of what we see in the book. Totally fine. It's a different choice for the film, but I do want to acknowledge that. What we do see in the book, though, let's take a look at that. The day of the reaping's hot and sultry. The population of District 12 waits, sweating and silent, in the square with machine guns trained on them. I stand alone in a small roped-off area with Peeta and Haymitch in a pen to the right of me. The reaping only takes a minute. Effie, shining in a wig of metallic gold, lacks her usual verve. As I mentioned when we were watching, the Effie performance here is so good, and it's so important that it's good because she is the embodiment of how the Capitol people feel towards the Quell going into it. Now, let's take a look at the rest of what Katniss says about the reaping. She has to claw around the girl's reaping ball for quite a while to snag the one piece of paper that everyone already knows has my name on it. Then she catches Haymitch's name. He barely has time to shoot me an unhappy look before Peeta has volunteered to take his place. We are immediately marched into the Justice Building to find Peacekeeper Thread waiting for us. New procedure, he says with a smile. We're ushered out the back door, into a car, and taken to the train station. There are no cameras on the platform, no crowd to send us on our way. Haymitch and Effie appear, escorted by guards. Peacekeepers hurry us all onto the train and slam the door. The wheels begin to turn, and I'm left staring out the window, watching District 12 disappear, with all my goodbyes still hanging on my lips. In the books, there is no dramatic demonstration of support for Katniss and Peeta. No solidarity between the victors and the rest of District 12. They're just taken out the back door and whisked away to the Capitol. This moment serves an important role in the novels because it's the first real crack in the protocol for the Quell. Up until this point, things have gone as usual. They did the reading of the card, they got a few months to prepare, or several weeks anyway, and the reaping still uses the same balls for the name drawing and the same pens to keep people in order while they wait for their reaping. But this time there are no goodbyes. In the movies, we might interpret this new procedure as a result of the show of solidarity just moments before, but the books don't give us that out. We don't get the emotional moment of Katniss being torn from her family. They're just taken away.
Katniss has her gold Mockingjay pin. I have my hair. I'm going to get you two boys something gold.
Why is that?
A token. Show them we are a team. And I can't just...
As I mentioned in the description for the reaping, Effie was supposed to have gold hair and she doesn't in the reaping. But we do see that wig here on the train, so that's something. We do get a similar conversation between Effie and the victors about these golden tokens. But Haymitch is much less chipper about the prospect. His actual response is, yeah, whatever. Katniss makes a note around that point that Haymitch isn't drinking, and she suspects it's because it's his responsibility to keep her, and more specifically, definitely Peeta, alive. But we have reason to believe that it's actually more complicated than that. We'll just get into it a little more later.
The capital has spared no expense. A new training center, new tribute living quarters, and of course, a very special arena. But this year you'll be facing other victors, capital favorites, smart, cunning, skilled. And they all know one another.
I want you guys to forget everything you think you know about the games. This year, you're dealing with all experienced killers.
All right. What does that mean for us?
That means you're gonna have some help.
I've gotta say, I hate how they downplay Peeta's role in the preparation for the third quarter quell. Peeta is not even a little bit passive in the books when it comes to the quarter quell. He is the one that motivates them to train like careers. He has Effie send them the videos of all of the potential all of the victors that they would potentially be facing in the quarter quell, and he takes meticulous notes on all of it. He is the one driving their team strategy. From the beginning, from the moment the card is read, he is invested. He is on top of making sure that they are preparing for these games to the best of their ability. So I hate that they have reduced his role to just a tribute again, as though he would not have been deeply in research mode about all of the other tributes. I understand this is easier for the film to present a more sober, more aware Haymitch. It makes a lot more sense for someone who's not familiar with all of the background work that Peeta had done up to this point, because again, we skip their whole preparation sequence, and as far as we know, it was card reading, next day reaping, and now we're in the capital. So for the timeline that we're seeing in the films, this does make sense, but it breaks my heart that we don't get to see how brave, how like confident and helpful Peeta is in the lead up to these games. I don't even have the right word for it off the top of my head right now, but he is the leader of this team, and I hate that they cut that.
Look, you're starting at a disadvantage. Most of these people have been friends for years.
That just puts us higher on their kill list.
Do it your own
We'll get
way,
back to the
but I
ally
know this.
conversation a little bit later.
You go it alone, their first move is going to be to hunt you down. Both of you. Kashmir and Gloss, brother and sister, District 1. They won back-to-back games, capital favorites, lots of sponsors. They will be lethal. And the other half of the career pack, Brutus and Inabari, Wyrus and Beatty. Not fighters, but brilliant and weird, real tech savvy. Morphlings, masters of camouflage. Not a threat.
Finnick O'Dare, right?
Yes, he won his games at 14, youngest ever, but he's the capital darling. They love him here. Charming, smart, and very skilled in combat, especially in war. Mags, she volunteered for Annie. Mags was his mentor and basically raised him. Well, Katniss, I just hope when she goes quickly. She's actually a wonderful lady.
Right, so we're actually supposed to see the reapings of all the other tributes with Effie and Haymitch and Katniss and Peeta all together. And this is how Katniss describes Haymitch's reaction. Haymitch watches, his face devoid of emotion, as friends of his step up to take the stage. This is a moment that we can read in a few ways, and one that is a bit more complicated now that we know what happens in Haymitch's games. Because we know that he's not just seeing friends reaped, he's seeing people that he knows are aligned with rebels potentially be cold. We know that BT has been involved in rebellious behavior more than once. More than twice, at least. We know that both Mags and Wiress were tortured because they mentored Haymitch. We also know that Wiress was actively colluding on a rebel plot because she cuts off the power to the building where the tributes are staying so that BT can meet with Haymitch without the Capitol seeing. And we don't know to what extent the other tributes were considered troublesome by the Capitol. I'm not necessarily claiming that these victors were selected. I don't know for sure one way or the other. That would be speculation. But I do think it's possible because so many of the victors that we see included in the 74 games are known to be at least rebel sympathizers. At least. It may also be possible that Haymitch is already in on the plot to get Katniss out of the arena at this point. We know that to some extent covert communication between the Capitol and the districts may be possible because we see Plutarch has contacts that are able to put him in touch with Lenore Dove during the 50th games. That's not to say that we know for sure that such a network exists, but it does seem plausible given what we've seen. Personally, I believe that it's quite possible that the scheme may have already been in motion at that point, because we know that the tributes are often recorded throughout their time in the Capitol, so it makes sense that there would have been some sort of communication before they get to the Capitol. But again, we have no idea to what extent that might be occurring or not. As we wrap up the Catching Fire as a Great Film Adaptation series, I will also do a sort of theory video where we use Sunrise on the Reaping to look at Catching Fire and consider how the rebel plot might have actually occurred in Catching Fire, when it might have started, who was involved, who played what roles. I'm really excited about the chance to talk about that because I think that my perspective on it might be a little unusual. So stay tuned for that video. We'll get to it once we're all the way through the Catching Fire adaptation series and we still have the games to get through. All right, on to the opening ceremony.
Katniss.
Hello, Finnick.
Do you want a sugar cube? I mean, it's supposed to be for the horses, but I mean, who cares about them, right? They got years to eat sugar, whereas you and I, well, if we see something sweet, I better grab it. You look pretty terrifying in that getup. What happened to the pretty little girl dresses?
I outgrew them.
You certainly did. Shame about this Quell thing. Now you could have made out like a bandit in the Capitol. Jewels, money, anything you wanted.
Well, I don't like jewels, and I have more money than I need, so what did you do with all your wealth anyway?
I haven't dealt in anything as common as money in years.
Well, then how do people pay for the pleasure of your company?
With secrets. What about you, girl on fire? Any secrets worth my time?
I'm an open book. Everybody always seems to know my secrets before I know them myself.
Unfortunately,
I think they
that's
handle that
true.
scene so well.
I'm sorry you had to cancel your wedding. I know how devastating that must be for you. Have a good day.
No waving and smiling this time. I want you to look straight ahead as if the audience and this whole event are beneath you.
Mace. Way to make friends out there, you two.
Well, we learn from the best.
I want to introduce you to some special friends of mine. This is Cedar and Chaff from District 11. He's very friendly.
I think that they handled the opening ceremony perfectly well. I want to take a minute or a few minutes to talk about the condition of the victors. In the films, they talk a lot about how the victors are all deadly killers. And at least most of them did kill someone in their games. But in the book, Katniss is actually pretty vocal in her disgust for the other victors. This is how she describes them in the opening ceremony. I think about how it's bad enough that they dress us all up in costumes and parade us through the streets in chariots on a regular year. Kids in costumes are silly, but aging victors, it turns out, are pitiful. A few who are on the younger side, like Joanna and Finnick, or whose bodies haven't fallen into disrepair like Cedar and Brutus, can still manage to maintain a little dignity. But the majority, who are in the clutches of drink or morphling or illness, look grotesque in their costumes, depicting cows and trees and loaves of bread. We don't get this contrast in the films, which is fine. The films are pretty clearly telling a story about Katniss and a legible rebellion. But this commentary in the books is essential world building. It shows how the people that participate in the games are scarred by it. There are the physical scars like Chaff's, but there is also the psychological scars that manifest in substance abuse. I'm sure we'll cover this in its own video at some point in the future because the way that several of these victors succumb to substance abuse is a reflection of how veterans and child stars do the same thing in real life. Victors are both veterans and child stars, so it makes sense that their adulthood and experience aging reflect sort of what we often see in real life. But that's a story for another time.
So what do you think? Now that the whole world wants to sleep with you.
I don't think that the whole
I wasn't
world...
talking to you.
Okay.
You want sip?
Yeah.
Thanks. Let's do it again sometime.
Joanna Mason, District 7.
Right, so they don't address this at all really in the films, but because it's particularly important here in Catching Fire, we're going to address the Avoxes. If you've read the book, you know that in the 75th games, the Avoxes for District 12 are a pair of redheads. One is the same girl, the same woman that we saw in the 74th games. She's someone that Katniss saw trying to escape and got brought back to the capital and then turned into an Avox. The new addition to their team is a friend of Katniss's, a former peacekeeper that got in trouble because he decided to step in when Gale was getting whipped, Darius. And seeing someone that she actually has a personal relationship, voiceless as an Avox, is destabilizing for Katniss, and that has an impact on her time in the capital. We don't see that here, but it's worth acknowledging that that does happen. And that this is a tool that Snow uses to taunt Katniss in preparation for these games. Now, let's talk about the inappropriate behavior of Finnick, Joanna, and Chaff. As we've already seen, Finnick sort of flirts with Katniss with the sugar cube situation. Chaff kisses her on the lips, and then Joanna strips down naked in front of them in the elevator. These are all situations that reasonably make Katniss uncomfortable. And here is the conversation that Peeta and Katniss have about these weird interactions. Finnick with his sugar cubes and Chaff kissing you, and the whole thing with Joanna stripping down. He tries to take on a more serious tone, unsuccessfully. They're playing with you because you're so, you know. No, I don't know, I say, and I really have no idea what he's talking about. It's like when you wouldn't look at me in the arena even though I was half dead. You're so pure, he says finally. They're just teasing you. No, they're laughing at me, and so are you, I say. For Peeta, this is a logical interpretation of how the victors have been treating Katniss so far. Personally, I think it has more to do with the plotting that's going on and them trying to keep it under wraps, but we're not going to get into that for this video. Basically, I think that they're treating her like this to keep the capital off their scent. In the film, we hear Peeta sort of pushing Katniss towards finding allies, where in the book it's much more consistently Haymitch that is pushing for that. It's likely in the book that he's doing that to try to get Katniss close, or keep Katniss close to the people that are going to be involved in the plot, but again, that's a story for another video. As we go through the training scenes, we are first introduced to the victors from 1 and 2. They're giving us a tour of the different victor tributes here, which is great for introducing us to characters and for displaying what each of these characters is good at for the films. They show us the career victors first, and we get to see that they are practicing the weapons that they are comfortable with. Something interesting about how this training is portrayed in the books is that a lot of the victors don't really take it all that seriously. And this is a consistent through line that we see throughout the prep for the Quarter Quell. At lunchtime, the victors bring their tables together and eat as a group. They joke about what to do in their private sessions, and they use their interview time to challenge the Quell. And we don't get a lot of this solidarity between the district people, or really even the sympathy that we should have seen from the attendant and the prep team. They don't include any of that really in the film. I get that they probably didn't include that because they want it to be clear who the enemy is, and the way that the film is portraying it, the enemy is the Capitol, broadly speaking, not just the people in power. It does make the messaging a lot simpler than it might be otherwise. I get that.
You should move your hands downward.
A little brute force.
It's always helpful. Thank you.
By the corner of the tape.
Force field.
How do you know?
Shimmering.
Interestingly, I don't even have this in the notes. I did not catch this while watching it earlier, but we don't see them talking about the supply issues between the districts and the Capitol, and therefore sharing intel about how the rebellion is progressing. They are narrowing what we see as the rebellion for the film into just what Katniss is involved in mostly. So I think that that's really interesting, and I can't believe I never noticed that before.
It's beautiful. I saw you volunteer for that young girl. It was really brave. Prim was my sister. If you teach me how to make a fish hook like that, I could teach her how to hunt.
This is cool, but they really just show her shooting like clay pigeons or something.
Good news. At least half the tributes want you as an ally.
I want Wyrus and Beatty.
Joanna calls them nuts and bolts.
Well, okay, good. Now, who else?
Mags.
I'll tell them you're still making up your mind.
District 12, Katniss Everdeen. Report for individual assessment.
They show them passing each other by. So it's interesting that we see Peeta coming out of there, because the way that it's described in the book is that there's almost like 30 minutes where Katniss is waiting to go in, and it's because they're trying to clean that painting up off the floor and they can't. So by the time that she is allowed in, they have basically given up on trying to clean it up, and they have covered the painting with a mat. So she actually doesn't see the painting at all. And I am glad that we do get to see the painting. I think it's cool, especially for the audience. But the painting is not really meant to provoke Katniss. She does the Seneca Crane thing all on her own, not provoked. She sort of sees that there's a weird vibe in the room and decides to go all out to help better Peeta's chances for survival. But let's stick a pin in that for a second, because isn't this like the first time she sees, or we see, Peeta's paintings in the film? He is a very good artist. We hear about that from basically the beginning of Catching Fire, but we don't see it in the film. So this is our first real exposure to Peeta's talent. Unless you want to count his special effects makeup that he did while he was in the first arena. I guess maybe that shows his painting skills, maybe? I don't know. Because she doesn't just bow out. She is granted permission to leave. Slight adjustment in her behavior there, which I honestly find funny. I also want to point out that Plutarch's facial reaction in the film is really interesting. It was all almost like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Which makes sense given what happens in Mockingjay and how he reacts to her sort of spontaneity, but I think it's really funny that we get that expression, where in the books it's pretty clear that Plutarch is doing everything he can not to react to her because he's trying to keep everything hush-hush, but I do like that they added it in the film. I don't know if it's really like a hint at what's coming or what it's supposed to be for the film, but I love that it's included there. It's a great addition. On to the interviews. Oh! That means we don't get scoring. Right. They don't show us that Katniss and Peeta both score a 12, which make them targets for the rest of the tributes. Great. Yes, that covers everything I want to say about the scoring. I think it's interesting that they don't give us any indication of that. Right, because the movie goes straight from the private sessions into the interviews, we miss one of the most romantic scenes in the series where Peeta and Katniss are canoodling on the roof because Haymitch and Effie decide that they don't need to do any preparation for the interview that they have. Because the film seems to feel the need to drain all the warmth out of this relationship, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that that did happen, and once again we're missing an important aspect of their relationship.
On the eve of the 75th Hunger Games! We have never seen anything like this, and we will never see anything like it again.
I want to talk about this interview that we're looking at right now, where we have District 1, Gloss and Cashmere, I think. They are on stage together, and I understand they're brother and sister, and their whole thing is that they're a duo. But if any group were going to be asked to go up on a stage together, wouldn't it be Katniss and Peeta? Isn't it weird that we get these two on stage together, but we don't get Katniss and Peeta up there? I get that because of the way that the plot plays out, that we need Katniss and Peeta split for their interviews. I just don't know why they made the change to have both of the District 1 tributes together on screen. That seems entirely unnecessary.
You have my heart.
You know, I'm getting totally screwed over here. The deal was that if I win the Hunger Games, I get to live the rest of my life in peace. But now, you want to kill me again. But you know what?
So, this is a change to Joanna's character, but I think it helps solidify her characterization. One thing that I wish that they had kept from the books is Cedar and Shaft's interview. Cedar quietly ruminates about how back in District 11, everyone assumes President Snow is all-powerful. So, if he's all-powerful, why doesn't he change the Quell? And Chaff, who comes right on her heels, insists the president could change the Quell if he wanted, but he must not think it matters much to anyone. I love that we see this level of courage in the book from District 11 and wish that had made it to the film.
Really? A wedding dress?
Snow made me wear it.
Make him pay for it.
I think we miss a lot of the build-up into the wedding aspects of this book, and it's so sad. We lose a lot of the emotional payoff of having this wedding dress, going out onto the stage, and then turning black.
Yes,
it's just not the same emotional impact it probably should be. We also miss how Cinna says that he's gonna pour his emotions into his work.
The wedding, marriage, never to be.
Well, actually, we got married. In secret.
A secret wedding? All right, do tell.
We want our love to be eternal.
Cool.
You know, Katniss and I, we've been luckier than most. I wouldn't have any regrets at all. if it weren't for the baby.
I think they handled this so well. I do wish we had more of the payoff by like seeing signs of this leading up to the show of Solidarity, the lunch scenes and stuff.
Your token, remember? Hair for me, pin for Katniss, gold bangle for you, and for Peeta, the medallion that we talked about.
So Effie's actually not supposed to be part of this moment. She's not allowed to say goodbye to them. But I imagine that they include her goodbye here in the film in order to make sure that the audience remembers the tokens, because it's about to be really important.
Any last advice?
Stay alive.
Remember, do whatever it takes to keep him alive.
Katniss, when you're in the arena, remember who the real enemy is.
Oh, so we get Katniss reminding Haymitch to look after Peeta, to prioritize Peeta here, probably to make up for the fact that we haven't seen her internal monologue and how throughout the process of the prep for the Quarter Quell, she has been thinking about how to help improve Peeta's odds. We don't actually get that part of the conversation in the book, but I think it's an important addition for the film. I also want to point out what actually happened in the book, because it's less kind and it shows that Haymitch is in a different headspace than what we see in the book. "You take care, Haymitch," he says. We cross the room, but in the doorway, Haymitch's voice stops us. "Katniss, when you're in the arena," he begins. Then he pauses. He's scowling in a way that makes me sure I've already disappointed him. "What?" I ask defensively. "You just remember who the enemy is," he tells me. "That's all. Now go on. Get out of here." Katniss interprets Haymitch's scowl as a comment on her, or his feelings towards her, but I would argue that it's probably equally as likely that that scowl is a sign of something that we see in Sunrise on the Reaping, where Haymitch is trying to figure out a way to say something treasonous diplomatically without anyone getting killed. I feel that there is heightened tension in the book in this moment because we're actually seeing the final domino really be put into place. And that's a wrap on part 8. Everything from the reaping to the interviews shows that the Capitol is working to keep these games together, for them to be just like any other games. And what we're seeing from the victors pretty consistently throughout is that they are not here to play the games, at least not the way that Snow anticipated. It is worth acknowledging that the film does present a more callous Capitol populace. We do not see the tears or the emotion towards the victors, at least not to the same degree that we see in the book. And we also see a far less unified group of victor tributes. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as they go into the arena. I think that it's important to acknowledge here that what is happening in the films is it's not acknowledging the choreography that would have had to go into a plot as big as the one we're going to see play out in the arena, where so many of the tributes come together to help get Katniss out of the arena. Instead, it seems more like they just took Katniss's perspective for granted, and I think that that will be really interesting as we continue to move forward. I think it would have been cool to see more of the pieces moving in the lead up to the twist of her getting pulled out, but we just don't see that. And I'm hoping beyond hope that we are able to tackle all of the 75th games in the next video. It might be a little long, but I think that we should be able to handle that. So I hope you'll join us there. Thank you for joining us. Quackers!